The most disciplined men I work with are often the ones making the least progress. This isn't because they're not trying, but it's because the habits they're most proud of are the ones making everything harder. My name is Adam. I'm a performance nutritionist who's helped over 200 men lose fat and keep it off. And these are the 6 habits that are the most common, but they are the ones that I see in men who struggle to lose fat. And the first habit is one that nobody wants to hear because it requires you to stop doing something rather than to start doing something. And that's somehow less satisfying. But the research on this is generally difficult to ignore. In one of the more prominent studies on sleep, participants were put on an identical calorie restricted diet. Half slept 8.5 hours, the other half slept 5.5. We are talking about the same food, the same calorie deficit, and the same amount of time. The group sleeping 5.5 hours lost 55% less fat and nearly twice as much lean mass as the group sleeping 8.5. We're not talking about 5% less fat, but 55%. So if you're in a deficit and sleeping poorly, roughly half the weight you lose could be coming from muscle, which means you're now driving up hunger even more, and you look worse at a lower weight. And also, the rebound is much faster, all while doing everything right. Now, for those of you who want to know why this happens, short sleep drives up ghrelin, the hormone that tells your body it's hungry. And then it suppresses leptin, which tells you you're full. So you get double impact there. On top of that, cortisol goes up and testosterone goes down. One separate study found that simply extending sleep by just over an hour a night led to people eating 270 fewer calories per day spontaneously without being told to track anything. And it turns out lying down for longer is part of the fat loss protocol. A lot of men I work with have their training and nutrition fairly dialed, but sleep is a thing they've decided doesn't count as much. 6 is fine, they say, and 6 becomes 5 a few times a week. And then they wonder why progress has suddenly stalled, despite the fact everything else looks right. So if you're losing fat and sleeping under 7 hours consistently, sleep is the first place I'd look. Dan came to me convinced intermittent fasting was working. He'd been skipping breakfast for months, keeping lunch light, and he'd lost weight early on, so it was really hard to actually debate that with him. But by dinner, he was starving. So he wasn't just eating dinner, he was eating dinner plus whatever he could find for 2 hours after. About half the week, he was finishing somewhere between 2,500 and 3,500 calories and wondering why the scale wasn't moving. The early loss had come from a deficit, but then appetite caught up and then some. Look, I'm not going to tell you to eat cereals or toast for breakfast, but I am going to tell you skipping breakfast is likely why you're so hungry at dinner time. A high protein breakfast has been shown to lead to fewer calories consumed later in the day. You're more full and not thinking about food all morning. Skipping breakfast or intermittent fasting can work for some people, but it's usually the people with the most amount of discipline who find it easy. A lot of those people just haven't struggled with fat loss and they don't like food so much. They see it more as fuel. But my caveat here is if you're not hungry and you don't struggle in the evenings, keep going. It may be working for you. But first, think about your last good diet day. Skip breakfast, rush something at lunch, and by 4 p.m., you were looking for anything you could get your hands on. By dinner, all you could think about was food. And now you spent the rest of the evening wondering why you always lose control at night. The problem wasn't the 8 p.m. you, it was the 8 a.m. you. So get 30 to 60 grams of protein in your first meal. The amount you get will depend largely on your target, but personally, breakfast is my highest protein meal. But remember to pick something you'll actually eat. Repeat it most mornings so it doesn't require much thought. And watch what happens to your evenings. Okay, so this one is particularly good at hiding itself because it feels entirely rational. You did a session, you crushed it. You earned that meal. And the meal is usually bigger than the session warranted. In a 24-week trial, the people that were put on 2 different exercise doses low volume and high volume. The high volume group wiped out 2.7 kilograms of expected fat loss over the course of the study. Not because the exercise didn't work or exercise doesn't work, but because their spontaneous food intake went up by around 124 calories a day without them even noticing it. And then a separate meta-analysis across 48 studies found the average person compensates for roughly 100 calories for every session through automatically increasing eating. In some studies, it's higher. One found moderate exercisers consuming nearly 500 more calories a day than sedentary controls. The body doesn't always compensate through hunger. A lot of it is through moral licensing. Your brain decides that one spin class earns you a pasta dinner or a bigger pasta dinner. You can, of course, eat pasta. And then the brownie. And it does this quietly without you even asking. It's not something wrong with you. It's just a very predictable human response to effort. And then there's a second side to this problem that compounds. Beyond eating more, a lot of people unconsciously move less on non-training days or even training days. They park closer, take the lift, sit down longer. The session happens. The rest of the day gets lazier and the net calorie change is much smaller than expected. So the fix definitely isn't to stop training. It's to track what you're eating rather than estimating based on how the session felt or how your body's feeling. A 45-minute weight session burns far less than most people assume. And arriving at the gym with an extra protein shake plus a banana plus a bigger dinner because I trained today adds up a lot faster than the training itself. So for a while I was convinced seed oils were the enemy. Not just being mindful of them, they were just the enemy. I read every label. I'd mentally audit a restaurant menu before sitting down. Same with sugar. I went weeks at a time holding these rules so strictly that one slip felt like a complete structural failure. And when it failed, it really failed. The research on this is fairly, I wouldn't say surprising, but it's impactful. About 70% of the studies looking at rigid dietary restraint found that it predicts more binge eating, not less. The mechanism is something called absentee violation effect, or the absentee violation effect. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. When a rule breaks, the brain doesn't file it as a minor deviation. It treats the day as ruined. And if the day is already ruined, there's no reason to stop at one thing. So you don't. I wasn't overeating because I lacked discipline. I was overeating because the system I'd built had no structural tolerance for anything real. No nights out, no meals out where I just wanted something normal and didn't want it to mean anything. The stricter the rules, the more catastrophic any departure for them felt. What actually works is replacing never with mostly. Not I never eat sugar. Most of my meals are high protein and minimally processed. Not I never eat out. When I eat out, I try to build a meal around protein and stop before I'm stuffed. One clear anchor, consistently repeated, adjusted when life requires. That system is less dramatic. It also works significantly longer. The logic on this one looks squeaky clean, bigger deficit and faster results. So people drop to 1,200 calories, stack cardio on top and set about surviving just on willpower. It works maybe 2, 3, even 4 weeks. Then hunger increases, sleep worsens, training starts to feel heavy, not in a good way. Now you're thinking about food constantly. Managing all of it becomes the main event, and it stops being about fat loss and starts being about whether you can hold it together for just one more day or whatever your timeline is. And your body isn't ignoring the deficit. It's responding to it, slowing down output to match the reduced input, shifting substrate away from fat, reducing anabolic hormones that help preserve lean muscle. The gap you created starts closing on its own. And the harder you restrict, the worse your training gets, which means more muscle loss and over time a slow metabolism. You're not accelerating results, you're quietly undermining them. And when you eventually loosen up, and you will, because nobody can survive on 1,200 calories indefinitely. The rebound tends to be proportionately crazy to how aggressive the restriction was. So imagine you've cut really fast. I promise you, you'll gain weight really fast. And you spent weeks or months so far below maintenance that it feels like eating normal is a surplus. And the weight honestly comes back really quickly. And it's easy to blame yourself for it, or the fact that everyone gains their weight back. A moderate deficit, around 20 to 25% below maintenance. This is where most people get consistently good results over time. Not because it feels impressively hardcore, but because it keeps training quality, sleep, and hunger where you can actually sustain them for long enough to see the results. And you can use my calculator below to figure that number out. And honestly, start there. So I went through a phase where I cleared out my entire kitchen completely. Anything I'd been regularly overeating, just gone in the bin. It felt like a real reset, I felt really good about it. Then within a week, I'd replaced all of it, not with the same things, with things I'd convinced myself were fine. Keto bars, expensive energy bars, food marketed specifically to people who care about what they eat and priced that way too. These were actually more calorie dense and they were easy to eat the point the past of needing them. They were still there every time I opened the cupboard. I'd essentially restocked the problem with a more credible looking version of itself, with more superfoods. The issue was never the specific food. I mean, it was the specific foods, but I mean, it was more the proximity and the pace. There's consistent research showing that eating quickly reduces the satiety signals that would otherwise tell you to stop. Fullness hormones take roughly 20 minutes to register, and if you've eaten your meal in 8, you've already gone past where you needed to. One meta-analysis across 22 trials find that slower eating reduced single meal intake by 10 to 15% with no conscious restrictions at all. Another study found that when the same foods were consumed as liquid rather than solid, so think about smoothies, people ate over 400 calories that day because the drink didn't register the same way as a meal. Which means, again, your smoothie, instead of having breakfast, the protein shake, or the extra protein shake even, I shouldn't say the protein shake, you're sipping in the car, the coffee or multiple coffees you've had with milk, you're not counting. Some of those calories are functionally invisible in your brain's satiety system. Now I want you to picture your usual evening. Sofa, TV, something within reach. You're not making a decision to eat. It's just automatic. A handful turns into a mouthful on repeat until a bag's empty. You've generally lost track how many calories that was. This isn't something wrong with your discipline. It's what environment and distraction do to everyone, including people who know better, including me. Now you want to change the setup. Keep high protein foods easy to access, like high protein foods are lower in calories. Keep the things you tend to overeat out of sight, or maybe even out of the house. Now pre-portion things rather than eating from the packet. You might want to get single servings. And try eating at least one meal a day at a table. Take your time, take 20 minutes, put down your cell phone. Stop when you're 80% full rather than just stuffed. Most people find that one change alone reduces evening intake without feeling like they're restricting anything. And design beats discipline every day. 6 habits, and none of them are dramatic. All of them are common, and every single one feels like discipline when you're actually doing it. That's what makes them so hard to spot. And you don't, and I wouldn't recommend fixing all 6 at once. Pick one that made you slightly uncomfortable hearing. Start there. When it's automatic, add another. And if you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe and watch this one next. I'll see you there.